What is the significance of the lines? Okay, and then do you have a guide to how to explain reroll OL gear? This question has come up a lot of times. To just in general sense, first things first is I would look at the priority lines, and I have an overload priority guide sheet that I write down here. So typically I put in the yellow, which are like really highly valuable stat lines. Get these if you have this character, get this much, or like that's your goal basically. They're like the absolute highest. And then I kind of write down like what's their ideal, how many ideals are there. Number two is you have to understand that each of these lines have like a certain percent to get them. The first line, you will always get it every time you change effects. You will always get something in the first line. However, it is possible that you don't get anything on the second or third line. And I believe the second line is about 50 to 60% chance that there is something. Not that it's an ideal line, but there is something. And then about 30% chance to get something in the third line. So now this starts changing up the strategy, because what you want to do is to lock the third line. That's the best, because locking the third line will allow you to have like, you know, that's the lowest chance of getting something there, right? So if you get something there, then it's great. So you lock something on the third line that is like highly valued. So something that I would say highly valued would be like max ammo for scarlet, elemental damage, or attack. So that's something. And so this one is I have Snow White, and so look at what I did here. I did lock it, and then I re-rolled it, and then you click change effects, re-roll, and then, you know, that's how you would get something. If you get like an attack or like a yellow line on the like, or a yellow like ideal stat line that I have written down here, in general, if you get that in the first line, unless it's a blue line, I'm usually more open to re-rolling it. So for example, like here for Modernia, I have 68% on max ammo. I am kind of open to re-roll it. So if in the next time that I want to upgrade my Modernia, I would this is probably the first one that I would re-roll. That's kind of like the strategy. I would say it's, in general, it is about good to do the second or third line. If you get like an ideal good line on the second or third line, it is fine to lock them. The really bad situation that you really wanna have and you don't wanna encounter is something like this. I guess just to give an example. So if this red hood, so like right here, for example, critical is like whatever on red hood, but then max ammo is kind of like, it's medium priority. Like I kind of consider it medium priority for red hood, right? Like it's orange here, so I kind of consider it medium priority. But then the elemental damage is on first line, so this one is like really sucks because I have like a medium priority here. It's like an okay, and then my ideal is the first one, so I'm like, this sucks basically for me. What you want though, the other one that's really good is something like this. So in this situation, I have attack on the second line, but then the first line and third line kind of sucked, or there's like nothing on the third line, I think. And then so what I did is I locked the second line, and then I got an elemental damage on the third line. And then my next strategy here, if I want to min-max my red hood a lot more, I would lock the elemental damage and then re-roll the first line. So that's kind of like this general strategy. So like in this situation also, like I have attack on the third line, I would lock attack, and then I would lock the first line, and then I would re-roll this. So in the situation where you have like an ideal second line or third line, and then you end up having a good first line, it's fine to lock the second or third line and then lock the first line and then re-roll for that last one. That's the general idea of kind of like the strategy that I would re-roll. So in this situation, for example, for this Alice that I would do, if I want to improve these gloves, I would lock the first line and the second line and then re-roll for the third line. It's gonna be rough though. Yeah, it gets really more expensive for each additional lock that you have. If you re-roll it further, it would cost an additional rock. So this one, since I have one lock, if I reroll it, it would cost 2 custom modules. If I lock the elemental damage and lock the attack, one, locking it, it's gonna cost 3. So it also increases how much the locking is. And then 2, after that, if I want to reroll, so I have, let's say I have like attack and elemental locked. If I try to reroll that, then this first line would just be more. Each try to roll for that first line is, it's gonna cost 3. But the good thing about it, at the very least, is in this situation for my Red Hood, at the very least, the first line is the bad stat. That will, because you're always gonna have like 100% chance of getting something out of there. The only probably other exception, again, this is more as a kind of personal thing, is, and not really thinking about it as much logically for this one, I got the blue line attack percentage. So I'm more leaning towards like locking this blue line on the first line and then re-rolling the other one. It sucks to see it happen, but like if I want more elemental damage on Snow White, this is what I'm gonna have to lock this and then try my luck on it. You can just read the things that I wrote down here, but in general, attack percentage and elemental damage are probably the highest priority for a lot of DPSs. Max ammo is typically good for the ones that don't have last bullet, and then no max ammo if they have last bullet effect typically. The only reset attributes when you have perfect 3 stats, actually not always. Let's see if I can find an example. I'll just give you what I did on this one. So I think if I recall correctly, for this Red Hood situation that I did, I got attack on the 3rd line. However, it was like 4%. A 4% attack is tier 1. Okay, so this is an increased attack tier 1. There's 15 different tiers for different values that you could get in an overload roll, and if you get like 4% attack, that's really bad. And the thing is, getting between tier 1 to tier 5, the accumulated percentage on it apparently is around 60%, and then between tier 6 to tier 10 is about 35%, and then the tier 11 to 15 is about 5%. That's during when you're clicking change effects. The only exception is by default, if you change from tier 9 manufacturer into overload, the first roll will always be tier 11. So that's why you can see here, these charge speed, attack, and max ammo, these are all tier 11 because these are first rolls. And basically seeing a lot lined up tier 11s there is like, you can tell that, oh yeah, that's the first roll. If you keep seeing just like pure tier 11s. Now here's the thing, right? If I end up getting attack on the 3rd line, like this one, if I get attack on the 3rd line but it was 4%, I am willing to click reset percent attribute, because like basically it's because there's a really high chance of me getting like, you know, like a 9%, right? That's like double the plus. So in that situation, I'm more inclined to reset attribute before locking it, because chances are, what are the chances of me kind of unlocking it you know, halfway through? Because I don't think I'm gonna 100% immediately, like, you know, once I get like all ideal 3 lines, I'm not gonna immediately like reroll them all or something like that, because, you know, there's other units that I'm also re-rolling, right? And it's every time you lock something, it gets really more expensive. So sometimes I'm more inclined to get something that's like maybe tier 7, maybe tier 8, tier 9, something like that, a little bit more, and then after I get that, then I would lock it, and then I would re-roll. So yeah, that would be like another strategy that I am really more willing to do. But yeah, that is basically kind of like overload overview in terms of just how I try to min-max the locking things. Some of them are kind of just more feeling based. It's and comfort based. Obviously, it's gonna vary from person to person how they would like to approach their re-rolling method.